Wow, welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy and tiring days to join us this evening. We've got a bunch of people who are online, as well as quite a nice crowd here in Alumni Hall at UGA's Vet Teaching Hospital. So I'm very pleased for this turnout, so thank you so much for coming. We are holding this inaugural Association of Asian Veterinary Medical Professionals Wellbeing event on the anniversary of the Atlanta spa shootings. This tragic event was one of many anti-Asian acts of violence that have grown since the beginning of the pandemic. So I would like us all to dedicate a moment of silence in memory of the victims of this horrible act, as well as many others who have suffered from acts of racism. The victims' names were Delana Ashley Yaun, Xiao Jie Tan, Dao Yo Feng, Hoon Jung Grant, Soon Ja Kim, Soon Jung Park, Yong E Yu, and Paul Andre Mitchells. Thank you for joining me for this moment of silence. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Sohyun An, who many of the UGA folks may recognize from her talk in the fall in our Anti-Racism 201 course, when she spoke about her research on how epidemics have been racialized from cholera to COVID-19 in the context of anti-Asian sentiments in the US. Dr. An is a professor of social studies education at Kennesaw State University, a former high school teacher of social studies in South Korea. She's a teacher educator of elementary social studies education. Before joining Kennesaw State University, she earned her PhD in curriculum and instruction from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and taught at Augustana College in Illinois. Her teaching and research center on anti-racist social studies curriculum and pedagogy, critical war studies, and critical Asian American history education. She joins us today to discuss her work in the area of the model minority myth. We're also happy to introduce her husband, Dr. Kwun, who, by happy coincidence, is a veterinarian. So Dr. Kwun is an assistant professor of surgery at Duke University, my alma mater for undergrad. He received his DVM and don't hate me. He received his DVM and PhD degrees from the Seoul National University and University of Wisconsin-Madison, respectively. His current research interests include humoral tolerance to organ transplants. So everyone who's been through immunology should recognize this. Both allo and xenotransplantation in animal models and humans, and developing a clinically relevant animal model to study the mechanisms of antibody-mediated rejection, establishing a conceptual basis that will translate into therapeutic intervention of antibody-mediated rejection. So please join me in welcoming them to this webinar on behalf of the Association of Asian Veterinary Medical Professionals and the UGA Voice.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. Actually, this is the first time me and my husband's been on the same panel because we are all totally in different world. I'm speaking the human language, like social science language. My husband's speaking, for me, it's like an alien language to me. But like somehow, like, right, tonight is, I think I'll be the first and then the last occasion, I guess. Thank you for inviting both of us. My name is Sohyun, as Kaori shared with you. So let me quick share my screen and from there. Okay. I hope that everyone can see this, right? So the chart that I got is like a model minority, right? Where it started, why that is dangerous? Isn't it just good racism? And if it's dangerous, then how we can like debunk and challenge this the stereotypes. So debunking model minority myth. Let's start. So when we open thinking about Asian Americans, right? If you don't have a real, like the real human being, like who happen to be Asian as your close colleagues or friends that you grew up with, then like in the media that, you know, the portray Asian American as a model minority, these are some of the, like some aspect of a model minority. So for example, Asian as like a whiz kids, they are prodigy, tiger mom, nerdy Asian dad. They're professional, but they are not boss. They are smart, they are wealthy, they are not really political, they are quiet, they are not complaining. And also they have this mindset like a pull yourself up by your bootstrap, or don't rock the boat kind of mindset, right? And Asian people also thinking about Asian doesn't get into trouble. Asians are not criminal. Asians are not violent protesters like on the street. They keep their heads down. So these are some of the like aspect of the Asian as a model minority, right? But the thing is, right, like, you know, although we're thinking about Asian as a modern minority, but for a long time, more than 100 years, right, because in Asian, the significant number of Asians started coming to the United States, cheap labor in the like early 1800s. Since then on, Asians are until like, you know, 1980s or 1960s, Asians were like a yellow peril. Asians were seen as a dangerous who put the white nation, white culture, Western civilization in danger. So, for example, this like, you know, the magazine cover page, the first one, or the second one, the Rough on Reds. This is like a red killer. The ad, it's a commercial. It's like the photo that sets you to the like the red killer. So actually, racism sells, right? This red killer, the producer, they wow, if I use the Chinese as a red because during that time, people thought that Chinese are eating rats. So then, whoa, if you buy our rat killer, it's just 15 cents per box. And it actually kills all the rats, and not just rats, it's mice, bed bugs, flies, and roaches, right? And another one, on the far left one, that shows like a Chinese or the Asians they are the threat to the United States economy. They are monopolizing the economy. So this like a, you know, dangerous foreigner, Asian as a dangerous foreigner, we call it like a yellow peril or like a perpetual foreigner, because, you know, they are even regular. They will never become like, you know, civilized American citizen. So those idea has been for long, more than 100 years. And then after 100 years, 1980, if you see that this Time magazine cover photo, even the title, right? Those Asian Americans, those are the whiz kids, right? Asian kids, they look, you know, they are civilized people, not just civilized, they are like, you know, whiz kids, right? They are like, you know, our Ivy League students or the spelling bee champions. So what happened during those 100 years? So how come, right, that the most despised, the foreign, like a minority, turn into the modern minority? So the first time the modern minority, even the terminology was used, was 1966, a New York Times article. The title was Success Story, Japanese American Style, which was like its op-ed article written by Harvard University sociologist William Peterson. He talks about, hey, look at Japanese Americans. When other minority, particularly he's targeting like a Black Americans, you know, he didn't name in it, but look at Japanese American, even if they are racial minority, but they somehow making a success. And he's, as a sociologist, how he explained Japanese American success culture. Japanese Americans are working hard. They are like the family is strong. Their children listen to their parents. Children wanted to make their parents proud. So they explain Japanese American success as a minority, unlike Black people. How come they make a success in the United States when they say America is a racist country? Well, it's because of their culture. So they use the culture as an explanation. Same year, U.S. News and World Report And this report is like targeting Chinese American. The title, The Success Story of One Minority Group in the United States. So similar pattern, right? They explain Chinese American success. So even if, it seems like the United States don't have a racism, look at Chinese American. They are now successful, like academically, economically, they are a successful group. And this is a direct quote from that news article. At a time when it is being proposed that hundreds of billions of dollars be spent to uplift Negroes and other minorities, the nation's 300,000 Chinese Americans are winning wealth and respect by the dint of its own hard work, not a welfare check. So although this article, again, didn't use African American per se, but what it means is that they are comparing, right? Compared to African American, that they asking for like equality, they ask for the social justice, they are even living on the welfare check. But look at Chinese American, they are not the burden. They are not asking for money from the welfare check from the government. They just work hard to make American dream. So that's, it's coming. So as you see, this modern minority somehow, right, the most despised minority turning to the modern minority, suddenly somehow in 1960, it was because of domestically, the biggest reason was the Black civil rights movement, because the African Americans, that they are demanding equality, they are demanding the justice, they are saying American society structurally is a racist. So then the dominant white groups, right, they are using Asian American as, look at Asian, there's no racism. If you work as hard as Asian, you can succeed. Why can't you be more like Asian? If Asians can make it, why can't you, right? So Asians are smart, they're working hard, not complaining. So America, we don't have a racism, it's you. Your group is a problem, whether you are genetically unsmart or you're culturally inferior. That was the message. Another one, domestically, right, the civil rights movement was behind this modern minority myth. And internationally, right, transnationally, internationally, it was because of the Cold War context. So then after World War II, United States and Soviet was like a huge in the conflict, right, the Cold War time. So then Soviet actually wanted to using the American racism to earn the hearts and mind from the third world. Hey, people around the world, look at United States. America is horrible. They even treat their own citizens just because of their different skin color. Their citizens horribly. So actually, Soviet, we are better than the United States. Please join my league, so that's what Soviet is using. So United States had a PR problem. United States wanted to have like a global reputation as a world leader of the democracy, freedom, and equality. But the real 1960s, right? America, we still have a racism. We say separate but equal. Racial oppression is going on, which makes America look bad. So then one of the things that America did is, well, Black people, they are struggling because it's genetically and culturally they are inferior. Look at Asians, right? If Asians are working hard, they are born to be smart, so then they can make American dream for, American dream. So America, we are not racist. African American struggle, it's their own fault, right? So that is, this Cold War context is another reason why somehow suddenly Asian American turn into the modern minority. So similar example, for example, 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. It's not somehow Supreme Court judges one day he just wake up and suddenly he think that there's a racial reckoning coming. Hey, when I wake up, suddenly when I'm thinking about it, separate but equal is a BS. I think separate is inherently unequal. It doesn't come up that day, right? It's because before the Brown, there's 100 years of history, more than 100 court cases that Black, Brown, Asian Americans, indigenous people, they challenged this separate but equal school system in the court, right? So then so that more than 100 years of people keep fighting, but we couldn't make it. Then how come somehow 1954, one day, Supreme Court judge changed his mind? No, it just came up because of the Cold War context. Well, to the world, we need to show that America, we cannot continue doing segregating under the, umbrella banner of like a separate but equal, because all the world, especially Soviet, is watching over us. And then another one similar case, because of this Cold War context, is the 1959 Hawaii finally become the U.S. state. So Hawaii, the bill for the Hawaii statehood, it's been in the Congress for like many decades, like from the 1900s. But then every year, every time the bill was like introduced in the Congress, always it failed. But around it after the World War II, and then when the Cold began, now they suddenly, wow, America, we need to do something. And then they found Hawaii is a great example. Hawaii, white people are the minority, right? The actually majority is Asian, like a Chinese, about 30% of the Hawaii population. Japanese, and then like a native Hawaiian. So Hawaii is a perfect place where not white people has not only numeric diversity, but also white people didn't have like a political power. It's actually Asian people, and Asian people have the political and numerical power. So then, let's pass this bill. So then let's make Hawaii as like one of our states to show the world that America, we celebrate diversity. Same thing with the 1965 immigration law too. So these also tell us, right, this Cold War is another international context where Asian suddenly dominant society, now they congratulate us, hey, Asian, you are modern minority, you are the good ones. The problem with this modern minority is that it's not a good racism at all, right? At the core, it is really anti-blackness, and it also denied the structural racism. Like, see, the problem isn't the structure of American society. America is like a level playing field. Everybody can achieve American dream if you just work hard, right? It's the behavior and the work habit or the individual culture that people make. And then, as I said, it's an anti-blackness at its core. The genesis of this modern minority is like in order to discipline the Black people who are on the street demanding justice, right? And another thing, the danger of this is that, look at Asians are doing good. Hey, Black people, why can't you be like Asian? So by doing so, this modern minority pitting Asian American against the Black community. So there's a huge animosity between these two racial groups. And by calling all Asian, by lumping all Asian groups under the idea of like a modern minority, it actually denies not all Asian Americans are smart or they're working hard. They are like, academically or economically successful, right? It denies many of Asian Americans who are struggling economically, academically, and politically. It glosses over the diversity within Asian American group. So for example, right, because of this modern minority, the story that we don't barely like hear from the media is that there are many Asian American ethnic groups that they are poor. So national average in America, 2013 data, our national average of the poverty, the people who live under the poverty line is 11%. That is our American national average. Even above the national average, actually among Americans, almost 30% of among Americans live under the poverty line. Same with Cambodian, Vietnamese, and Laotian. So then if we keep using Asians, they are all like a successful, wealthy people, then we don't pay attention to the many of Asian American poor Asian American who are struggling with economic injustice. Another one about Asians are all like, academically high achieving, right? The Ivy League like people. No, not at all. So if you see in the middle, this is like about 30% American people finishes the college education. 30% of all America, total Americans are finishing college. But if you look at the Asian as all together, actually 50% of Asian Americans are actually have the college graduate. So that's why people have this perception that, Asians are all smart. They are academically high achievers, right? Because we are above the national average. But if you look at if you desegregate the data, if you're not just Asian as a lumping together, if you separate each Asian, the ethnic groups, if you see who are under the national average, if you see like a Bhutanese or the Laotian, Hmong, Cambodian, Burmese, Vietnamese, Thailand, the people from the Thailand. So there's many Asian Americans whose education, right, educational achievement is way below the national average. So it's better not to lumping all different Asian ethnic groups under the same umbrella as like a modern minority. So Asian Americans are the most, the data shows, right? That data shows Asian Americans are the most economically racial group, that among ourselves, the Asian American experience the most income inequality of all races in the United States. So there's a like a, you know, how can I say, not like Bill Gates, but the crazy rich Asians, right? Who have multiple homes, multiple buildings, and multiple passports. But also we have Asian Americans who are homeless. There's Asian Americans who are so poor on living under the poverty line. So each racial group has those, like, you know, the difference, gap, the difference, right? The wide variety. But actually Asian Americans are the most, like, you know, among other racial groups, the most economically divided group. And because of all of this, Asians, we have higher rates of suicide, depression, and anxiety in our own racial group. Then we need to add, the people are curious, right? Well, yeah, Southeast Asian, because they were the refugees, right? They came to America because of the Vietnam War. So understandably, they are economically and, like, you know, the academically, they are struggling. But there's other Asians, right? Especially Indians or Chinese or Korean, they are, the data shows economically and academically, they are successful. Why? Isn't it because of their culture? Then we, like our sociologists, they will show, yeah, it's not about the culture, right? If you go to Korea, you know, in Korea, there's a bunch of Koreans who are super smart, but also there's a bunch of Korean kids who are academically struggling, right? The reason is because of our immigration law. 1965 US immigration law, which is like a country these days, our current immigration law kind of follows this line. The current day immigration law, they have a preference system. So who are preferred, who are privileged to enter the United States, and who are not welcome to enter the United States? Those who are allowed to enter the United States are the professionals, highly educated professional with a skilled labor. They are preferred, right? And then family reunification. So these two categories, whether you are professional or if you have a, you know, U.S. citizen, you can invite your people, your how can I say, family members or your relatives. So because of these two, right? So already Asians are, like, you know, highly selected. Those Asians who are well-educated and middle class and also professional skills, they get chosen to enter the United States. So no wonder, right? No wonder it's some of these, like a Chinese or Indian or the Korean Americans are successful compared to Asian ethnic groups or even other racial minority groups. So often we thinking about Asians are like a quiet, obedient, successful, but actually Asians are like a badass, right? Asians have been, like, you know, speaking up on the street, demanding the just, hey, government, do something, you know, the right thing. We are struggling. We have actually, although we don't teach Asian American history, the long civil rights activism, we don't teach at school, but we have this history. So for example, the first one, this is a Tate versus Hawley 1885 court case. So when we often thinking about, like, you know, the school segregation, we only thinking about, okay, it's all about white versus black. White kids go to white school, black kids go to black school because Jim Crow, said like a separate but equal. But 1954, the Brown versus Board of Education finally said separate is never equal. Now that we all black and white kids can go to school together. That's why we understand, right? Because that's how we were taught. But oftentimes the story that not get taught is about, what about Asian Americans, right? Chinese Americans or the other Asians are starting to enter the United States from early 1800. And then according to 14th Amendment, if you are born in the United States, you have right to attend the public education. Then where these Chinese kids go to school, right? If it's only about white versus black. So here's a tape, if you see the family photo, although their parents could not be the naturalized U.S. citizen, because until 1940, around the 1940s, Chinese Americans cannot be naturalized citizens. So Mamie Tape's parents couldn't be a naturalized citizen, but Mamie Tape, along with her two little siblings, they were born in the United States. So Mamie Tape was born in early 1800. That means after Civil War, according to the 14th Amendment, Mamie Tape is a U.S. citizen. She has a right to attend the public school. But then San Francisco School District, they have a segregated school for the black segregated school for the white, segregated school for the indigenous kids, but there's no even segregated school for the Chinese. So maybe the family, they thought, wow, my kids as a U.S. citizen has a right to attend the public school, but our school district is unfair. So they sued the school district, went all the way up to the California Supreme Court. That is Tate versus Holy court case, 1885 in California. As you might guess, who win? Mamie Tate won. So this also shows that this Mamie Tate family, they are not quiet, law-abiding citizen, right? They challenged the system, and they are the badass people, right? Even 1880s. Another one, this is On Kim Ark versus the United States. This is also went all the way to U.S. Federal Supreme Court case, 1898. Again, American citizenship law. If you are born in the United States, we are automatically, no matter what your skin color. So On Kim Ark, born in the United States to the Chinese laborers. So he is a U.S. born citizen. But then after he's visiting his family members in China, on the way coming back from China, he was denied to the entry because, the immigration officer, he was a super racist. He didn't acknowledge the Chinese people. If they are born in the United States, they are as equal as him as a U.S. citizen, but he didn't want to acknowledge that. So he denied On Kim Ark entering the United States. So then On Kim Ark challenged the immigration officer. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. Again, On Kim Ark won, right? This is also On Kim Ark's case, really confirming one more time, reminding the nation that no matter what skin color, if you're born in the United States have a birth relationship. This is also interesting case, although it's unsuccessful. First one is about Japanese immigrant. His name is Takao Ozawa. He challenged the U.S. government 1922 because he wanted to be a naturalized citizen. And the Bhagat Singh Tin, he's an Indian immigrants, he also wanted to be the naturalized citizen. But as I said, right, in the United States until 1940, 1950, on the people who could be naturalized citizen, if you are immigrant, only if you are immigrant from the Europe as a Caucasian, or if you are entering the United States as from the Africa. So if you are immigrant from Asia, the United States law doesn't allow you to become naturalized citizen. But Ozawa, he's a Chinese immigrant. He's really pale, and he wanted to be U.S. citizen, right? So then he challenged the school system, and his argument in the court is like this: look at my skin color. I am much whiter than Italian or Jewish people. And that was true. Even the Supreme Court judge said, yeah, in my eyes, you are actually paler than Italian or Jewish people. But the Supreme Court judge, his explanation is that, well, even if your skin color is white, but you are not Caucasian. So the Supreme Court judge denied Ozawa's claim for his right to be naturalized citizen. Then a few months later, 1923, Bhagat Singh Tin, from India, immigrant, he even fought for the America during the World War I, and he heard about Ozawa case. So then, whoa, my skin color is really dark, as I'm dark Indian man, but I'm Caucasian, he's Aryan, right? So then in the court, in front of the court judge, he said, well, the court judge, I heard about Ozawa case. I am qualified to be American citizen, naturalized citizen, because I am Aryan, which means I'm Caucasian. Then the same Supreme Court judge said, well, he changed his mind. Well, you are Caucasian, that's true, but your skin color is not as white as normal common people's eyes. So he denied it. So that also, this shows, right, although it's a failed, it literally shows Asian Americans are not just shut up their mouth and just follow, unjust, obey the unjust law, right, unfair laws. They challenge the system. Another case, we are Japanese and Mexican laborers in the farm in California. They united. They were on the strike against the white, the farm owner. 1960s, the Filipino and Mexican farm workers, again, they unite to, you see, I'm sure many of you recognize Cesar Chavez, right? We often thinking about the farm workers movement. We only think of Mexican laborers and the Cesar Chavez, but actually right next to the Mexican workers were the Filipino farm workers. Letty Italion and the Cesar Chavez, they worked together. Yellow power movement too. When we talk about civil rights movement 1960, we only focusing on African American civil rights movement, but also there's a red power, brown power, feminist power movement, and also yellow power, which is Asian American movement. Also, what we don't talk about is that we just putting Asian against the Black people, but also history show us there's a beautiful solidarity between the Asian and Black solidarity. As you see, Yuriko Chama, she's a Japanese American, the activist, the civil rights activist, working together, Malcolm X and Black freedom struggle. So when Malcolm X was assassinated, as you see in the photo, Life magazine photo, Yuriko Chama, she's right there. In the 1970s, these days we talk about matter, police people's like protests against like police brutality. Actually, 1970s in New York City, Chinatown, also the Chinese people and Asian community got together on the street demanding justice against the police violence against the Asian Americans. Also after the Vincent Chin, the murder of Vincent Chin by two angry white auto workers who thought that their unemployment was because of the Japanese auto industry. So then when they saw the Vincent Chin who was doing the bachelor party in the Detroit, the local bar, they literally assumed that this Vincent Chin Chinese American as their enemy, who for them Japanese are the enemy for their unemployment. So they killed the Vincent Chin with the baseball bat. Another injustice with this case was that these two murderers, they never served any time in jail. Their sentence was 3 years of probation and $3,000. That was for this man's brutal killing. Also, New York City garment workers strike it in like an Asian immigrant woman on the street demanding justice. Asian Push, she's amazing Asian American leader, co-founder and executive director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance. These days, the Southeast Asians community are really struggling about the harsh deportation immigration policy. Many of the Southeast Asian refugees are now being deported to their original home country. So they are on the street demanding justice. During the Black Lives Matter movement, there's even group called like Asians for Black Lives Matter, right? They're on the street for the interracial unity. Even our students, Asian American students and their allies asking for the, multicultural history education. So I was almost in tears last year, 2021, Illinois became the first state among the 50 states in US history that requires Asian American history being taught in K-12 public schools. That was a historic moment. And this was like, Asian American students and communities that get together demanding the equal rights in education. So I want to end with this, this summary, right? This model, as you see, model minority, this is wrong, right? It's inaccurate because Asians are not just quiet, obedient, successful minority. Asian Americans have a long history of Asian American civil rights struggle and resistance against injustice. And also this model minority myth is dangerous because at its core, it's a bottom line, it's anti-blindness, right? It denies racial discrimination in the United States. It's reinforcing the white supremacy. It's pitting against Black, brown community. So that is, why model minority is dangerous. So there's actually no good racism, right? Yeah, what's wrong with the model minority? We are telling you that you are the good one. Well, no, don't say that we are the good one. There's no good racism. We need to refuse buy into the good minority and bad minority distinction, actually offering citing culture as a formula for success is just simply wrong. Culture often serves as a blank screen onto which individuals project their various political agenda, particularly those they have in power. That's what I have for now. So I will now pass on to the Dr. Kwun.
I do have a question for you, Dr. Kwun. So in your experience as a veterinarian from South Korea, how have you felt a huge difference in how you were treated in South Korea versus the US?
Well,
Sorry, that's a big question.
yeah, there's a big question. Well, I don't know. I was living in the two different country in two different time. I mean, the two different status. So when I was in Korea, I was more like, you know, vet students, and the here is more like, you know, like later stage of my career. So it's really hard to compare like head to head. But yeah, I don't know. I think the I yeah yeah I don't know.
That's a tough question.
But I always thought that the academia is you know, the area that there might be a little less racism in some sense. Maybe there's a still here, but well, maybe like Sohyun might think differently.
How about the model minority myth? Is there anything similar to that in South Korea or other Asian countries that you might have researched, Dr. An, or is this uniquely American for the US?
This is uniquely, I think, United States or any other like a more the white settlers country like Australia or the Canada or the United Kingdom. So South Korea, because nowadays we are more like a globalized, so we have Korean citizen living in United States in Korea, but pretty much like I think it's still like more than 90% of the people living in Korea are the Koreans. So it's not we are the predominantly it's quite homogeneous. So I think if there's any oppression or the discrimination is mostly more based on the class position rather than race or ethnicity. So that is more, yeah. So, but modern minority, this is more like, happen in the like a racially diverse society when the one dominant group kind of pitting the like, marginalized group, one group against another. And in order to, that is a hegemonic tool, actually, the power that be, they are controlling these minority groups, their complaints, right? Oh, look at this, the Latinx group, they are better than you Black people. So why don't you like a Latinx, but this case, it's more about the Asian, right? They are comparing Asian against like a Black, brown, and indigenous folks. Asian people, if Asian people can make it, then why can't you? It's not about, white people. Our society is like a fundamentally white supremacist society. It's because of you as a culturally or your work ethic wise, because you are lazy, you are not, your culture is you are all like headed by like a single mother because of your immoral, whatever that is. So they are using this culture or the genetic. Nowadays the genetic doesn't work, right? That is back in the day when like the science like the based on that idea. But these days more they are using the culture and look at the Asian culture kind of thing. So yeah, in short answer, in South Korea, yeah, modern minority is not a thing. I only learned about in experience personally too in the United States when I came to the United States.
Any questions, y'all? When I think about the model minority myth, I think about it in the context of wellness, mostly because of my role on AVMP and also here at the vet school. And, it's already a crushing amount of perfectionism that students deal with, just any vet student, right? But if you have this expectation on top of it, that you have to be smart, that you have to do well. And, I think that adds a whole nother layer of mental health difficulty.
Although I was more focusing on like a social aspect of this modern minority, historical and social aspect of it, but when you're going down to more psychological and individual aspect of this, like a danger, the harm of modern minority is not good for the not only other group, right? Like because Black, brown community are like denigrated, like they are being compared to the for the Asian Americans too, this stereotype, any stereotype is wrong, right? Oh, Asians, you're good ones, you are quiet, you are smart. But as you know, Kaori, as you point about, like, you know, the students feel they are pressured, right? They want to be, oh, I'm never enough, right? Because all teachers or society expect me to be like academically successful, economic successful, or like interested in like a math or any STEM field, when my heart is in like, you know, the cooking, or my heart in the like modeling or like acting. So then there's a lot of intergenerational like the conflicts between the parents and the kids, or even within themselves, like the Asian American students, they are struggling a lot with this even though within the Asian American students community, like, you know, if there are any Asian students, they are going, like, they are beyond this, like, they are not fitting to the mother mind concept. Oh, why she acts like that? Oh, she's like, you know, she acting black, right? So there's even the community policing the Asian students. Yeah, we should be good. We shouldn't be like a black kids, right? So then there's an Asian American, among the even the youth group, there's a othering within themselves. So it's not good for everyone, for their, especially the mental, psychological health, and then also like interpersonal like relations.
We do have a question from our internet audience. So how would you say that the Asian American versus Asian immigrant experience is different with regards to the model minority myth, or is it different?
That is fundamentally, you see, the Dr. Kwun and my talk is totally different, right? Dr. Kwun said it's out for me, for him, because I'm sorry, Dr. Kwun, but Dr. Kwun said it's hard to explain, right, that his experience. I think not only about that he's in the STEM field or the academia, but also as an immigrant, right? I think first, because I'm same as like my husband, but then I'm studying this field, right? I'm studying the racism, especially anti-Asian racism. So I'm more like as a scholarly approach. Me as a personally, if I don't study this part as an first generation immigrants, many of the Asian immigrants say, well, we are the sojourner, we are the stranger, we are the foreigner from another country in the United States. So if the you know, Americans, right, if the Americans are being mean to us or the, you know, discriminate us, so we get that. We chose to come to America, so this is their rule. If you go to Rome, you need to follow the rules of the Rome, kind of that mindset, right? Immigrant mindset. So then they, even if they experience racism, but they more like they want to, yeah, don't think of too much, you know, it's we chose come to this country, we just suck it up, we just working hard, that mindset. But then the children of the immigrant generation, they are born in America, and this is their own country, and our country promised that liberty and justice for all. Why then our society like mean to like discriminate our group? So then the second or the later generations are more like, you know, the more sensitive about the like a societal expectation or the treatment against one group against the other. So yeah, definitely, yeah, the first gen immigrants and then US born, the later generation, they're like a sense making of this like a modern mind or forever foreigner myth is, you know, quite different. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have one more question that we have time for. How does this differ with mixed race experiences? This is near and dear to my heart because my son is half Japanese.
Yeah, so like I'm not expert on the like a mixed race study, like, you know, because these days like critical race theory is a huge thing. Everybody who doesn't know nothing about race or racism theory, they know CRT, right? So there's a critical race theory. Under the critical race theory, we have like an Asian American critical race, the Asian creed, Lat creed, or the, you know, the even we have a critical whiteness study. So that even the mixed race, right? The critical race theory cannot really explain this like mixed or the multiracial people's experience in the United, how the white supremacy shapes the people's lives who are the mixed race. So even there's like a new branch of the critical race theory, which talking specifically, like how can I say, zeroing into about the experience and the struggle of the mixed race. So I'm not expert on this, so I cannot confidently say it. But yeah, of course, it's different, right? The kids who growing up the mixed, like the multiracial or multi-ethnic families, right? Then they all have like, you know, their life experience will be different. And there's also another study about like, the adoption, right? Transnational or transracial, this adopted family. So the kids, the Asian kids adopted by the white family, their experience of their understanding, their identity, racial identity is totally different, right? So yeah, it's a hard, in the United States, there's no single story. Like even the experience of racism, you go ask, we'll hear a totally different story because of like who we are, our like a really complex and diverse, divergent identity.
All right, well, we're here at the hour, a little bit over. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Could everyone give them a round of applause?
Thank you much for having us. Have a good afternoon. No, good evening, by the way.
Well, we have some folks tuning in from the West Coast, so.
Oh, I see. Whoa. Woo.
Good afternoon.
Bye.
Great, thanks a lot. Bye.
For the people